The last year there has been many talks about Dawood Ibrahim. Okay, like auction of his property and he is residing in Pakistan and stuff. So you are saying that there is some sort of individual going on. We have those predictions, right? So in this case, are there any chances of this being?
मतलब दाऊद?
हाँ, एक topic था last year was. यानी टीम मदर वगैरह.
But you think कि Modi went to Lahore to talk about Dawood?
थोड़ा सा बात.
अरे दाऊद के बारे में तो पाकिस्तानी पॉलिसी इज वेरी क्लियर. यू डोंट नो हु आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट. सिंपल. त्यांना तुम्ही सांगितलं ना ते त्याला पासपोर्ट डिटेल्स देतात, ते त्याला फोनचं बिल देतात, ते सगळं करून येतात. ते सरळ सांगतात आम्हाला माहिती तुम्ही कुणाबद्दल बोलताय. त्याला कारण आहे मिस्टर इब्राहिम has multiple interests A, B and has been very well protected by the ISI as well as by the Pakistani army in the sense that over the years he has acquired a completely different personality altogether. You don't know what does he look like. Nobody has seen him, at least on the Indian side, for a long time. He has different types of passports. He has different names. As far as I know, he has long undergone at least 2 plastic surgeries. ज्याच्यामध्ये he no longer looks the same that he looked when he had left Bombay. त्याच्यामुळे तर पाकिस्तानी claim stands ज्याला ते say की आम्हाला नाही माहिती तुम्ही कुणाबद्दल बोलताय. पण तुमच्याकडे पासपोर्ट नंबर आणि डिटेल्स आहे. You don't know what does this person look like. Okay. B. He is not the game in town. Any person like this who has been used in something as big as a 1992 wala bomb blast for the country that has deployed him has outlived his utility. So for the Pakistanis, दाऊद एक ऐसा चीज है कि जिसमें उनको कोई ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट नहीं है. They know कि आज की तारीख में वो कुछ नहीं कर सकता, and which is very true. It's there in front of him. कि after that 1992 वाला thing, despite all the talk, Dawood is more or less a myth which has been sustained by the Hindi film industry. In terms of some man who has a larger than life claim over things, some man who is extremely mysterious in the way in which he works. तो मेरा पर्सनल मानना ये है कि आपकी हिंदी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री की खुराफात है. ऐसा कोई आदमी शायद नहीं है. And he possibly does not enjoy the same level of leverage and influence which you are crediting to it. Because there's so much which has happened after 1992, not just in Bombay, not just outside Bombay, but even in Bombay, and he has not been in a position to influence anything on this. Okay, his utility is gone. They can't use him again. There are so many other modes which they have gone about using. But B, the most important thing, the very nature of the economy of Bombay has undergone a change. त्याच्यामुळे ते जे जुने पॉकेट्स होते की ज्यांना अशा प्रकारच्या माणसाची गरज होती टू इन्फ्लुएन्स देम, दोज टाइप्स ऑफ थिंग्स आर लॉन्ग गॉन. यू आर लिविंग इन अ न्यू इकॉनॉमी. बट ही मूव्ड हिज गेम अ लॉन्ग टाइम अगो टू सिमिलर टाइप्स ऑफ सिच्युएशंस इन प्लेसेस इन द मिडल ईस्ट. म्हणजे जसं बॉम्बे का इकोनॉमी 1980s 90s वाला था, वैसे मिडल ईस्ट के शारजाह, दुबई के जो इकोनॉमीज है, मिस्टर इब्राहिम हैज ऑलरेडी मूव्ड इनटू ऑल ऑफ दैट अ लॉन्ग टाइम अगो. सो त्याने सगळ्या फॅन्सीफुल क्लेम्स येतात ना की त्याला मुंबईतनं काय प्रकारे पैसा येतो, त्याला मुंबईतनं. क्लासिकल इज व्हॉट आय विल टेल यू इज रेफर टू दॅट सीरीज विच वॉज डन बाय द हिंदू व्हेन द हिंदू फर्स्ट स्टार्टेड पब्लिशिंग फ्रॉम बॉम्बे. द हिंदू डिड ॲक्च्युअली अ 6-part सिरीज ऑन दाऊद इब्राहिम, अ व्हेरी फनी सिरीज, ज्याची इतकी गमतीशीर सिरीज मी माझ्या अख्ख्या आयुष्यात नाही बघितली, ज्याच्यात सोर्सेस वर नॉट नेम. देयर वॉज टाइम अँड अगेन समथिंग विच सेड दॅट अननेम्ड सोर्सेस. Obviously, if your sources are unnamed, how do I believe when they say that no, he is responsible for a 60,000 crore का transaction? अच्छा, सबसे बड़ा चीज आज के बॉम्बे में ये है कि 60,000 करोड़ का ट्रांजैक्शन एक बहुत छोटी चीज है. You have so many people who can play that game now in Bombay. So त्या केस मध्ये तुम्ही मला असं सांगणं की ह्या असल्या सगळ्या प्रकारच्या गोष्टींमध्ये तो इन्व्हॉल्व्ड आहे आणि कंटिन्युअसली अख्ख्या सिरीज मध्ये कुणाचीही नावं न घेत आमच्या इन्व्हेस्टिगेशन्स मध्ये आम्हाला नोन त्याच्या हाताखाली काम करणाऱ्या माणसांकडनं असं कळालं तसं कळालं. दिस इज नॉट द वे बाय विच इट कॅन बी डन. इट्स अनटेनेबल. The world has moved on. Pakistan stupid नहीं है कि it will invest in a person like this. Okay, when it is now much more easier to go about investing in foot soldiers on a transactional basis. तो बॉम्बे 2008 वाला जो केस है, हे पैसे घे जा उडून ये, that is much more easier rather than cultivating one individual and his whole family. That is very 1990s. दुनिया बदल गया, हमारे देखने का नजरिया नहीं बदला, वो बदल नहीं सकता आपका, क्योंकि आपकी हिंदी फिल्में आपको बदलने नहीं देंगी। तो कभी अजय देवगन आएगा, कभी ऋषि कपूर आएगा, कीपिंग इन फैक्ट द एज। 2016 में शाहरुख खान आएगा, of course not as Dawood Ibrahim, as a Gujarati gangster, but with shades which are very strongly Dawood Ibrahim. Rais. पिक्चर बघत, हिंदी पिक्चर तर डेफिनेटली बघत, मराठी मध्ये काय नाही बरं असतं. त्यामुळे प्रॉब्लेम इज Dawood is not the main concern as far as the Pakistanis are concerned. The Indians are definitely obsessed. At least some people are certainly obsessed. त्यातला एक माणूस अजित डोवाल आहे, I know that. I mean, this whole idea that Indians have कि नहीं कैसे खींच के लेके आएंगे, ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे. And the problem is post 1992, how many things can you attribute to him? सोच के देखो, मेरे को अगली बार बोलो, मेरे को तो पता नहीं कि पोस्ट 1992 वाला जो बॉम्बे का बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट का केस है, उसके बाद ऐसी कौन सी चीजें हैं कि जो आप डायरेक्टली उसको एट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं. मेरे को तो नहीं मालूम. My sources don't know anything of this. This game is done. He has moved on. The world has moved on, except for Indians of the Ajit Doval variety. पण अजित डोवाल एक वेगळा टाइमपास आहे, त्याच्यासाठी आपण परत कधीतरी भेटू. आणि ती जी इमेज आहे ना की दाऊद नीड्स टू बी लाईक मुसक्या आवडू, या करू, त्या करू, ते इज अ फंक्शन स्ट्रिक्टली स्पीकिंग ऑफ पॉप्युलर कल्चर, not of something which has anything in the ground. हाँ बोल, एक मिनट.
तुम्ही बोलताना सांगितलं की जर कोणाला सँक्शन जर उठवले गेले तर अजून इश्यूज क्रिएट होऊ शकतात. कुठले इश्यूज क्रिएट होतील?
फर्स्ट मोस्ट ऑयल मार्केट का प्रॉब्लम होने वाला है, because you are suddenly going to get one more big source of supply which is going to drive down prices. Okay, अब ये interrelated है in the sense that as this starts driving down prices, as oil के prices go down and create troubles for countries like Saudi Arabia, whose economies are largely not diversified beyond oil. The Saudis are going to start looking at more different ways of maximizing on their investments and influence, thereby leading to a spike in certain types of violent activities. जे एका अर्थाने ऑलरेडी चालू आहे, which is afoot, but which is going to gather intensity as this will increase. B. Iran is a major player in the Persian Gulf region as far as a range of geostrategic considerations are concerned. Okay. आता the India problem with the Iranians is a blow hot, blow cold वाला मामला. म्हणजे जसं जसं Iran comes back to the game, the second big thing which you have to remember about Iran is a well diversified economy. It doesn't have the same problems that the Saudis have. So Iranian economy oil centered economy नहीं है. अच्छा, ईरान इंडिया के ट्रेडिंग रिलेशनशिप्स खाली ऑयल पे प्रेमाइज्ड नहीं है, वो बहुत सारी चीजों पे प्रेमाइज्ड है. India does have a certain sort of investment in Iran. It does have a belief कि we have got something to gain out of them. पण जसं जसं Iran opens up, Iran also has a lot to gain from other countries, namely Russia and China. Most importantly from China. ये चाबर पोर्ट का जो इशू है ना, जो आज की तारीख में अटका पड़ा है, is simply atka in the way in which it has been atka because the Iranians have moved to the Chinese. So jasa Iran becomes a legitimate player on the ground, Iran creates further sort of spaces for India in terms of trade and commerce, but also goes about constricting further spaces for India in terms of geostrategy. I don't know whether you are able to understand this. If China can play a Pakistan game, if China can play an Iran game, and if China plays all the Afghan factions, can you look and can you try to imagine as to what sort of situation do you have on the western side of India's frontiers? ईस्ट में तो सवाल ही नहीं है, ईस्ट में चाइना ही चाइना है, पर आपका वेस्ट जो है ना वो एक तरह से पूरी तरह से starts becoming influenced by the Chinese. I don't know whether you are able to realize इसके ramifications क्या हो सकते हैं. So that's one big thing that we are looking at. Karan, as of now, anyway the Iranians are playing the game with the Russians in Syria. The second big thing is the Iranians are deeply interested in playing with the Chinese as far as the Persian Gulf region is concerned. China is going to do everything to secure its interests vis-a-vis Iran and Afghanistan. Pakistan is anyway on board. What does this leave India with? Are we clear about that? I don't know. मतलब I have always, मेरे को कोई problem नहीं है. I always felt that the Chinese can actually be one of India's best friends. India needs to open up. India needs to understand. India needs. It's a simple, एकदम simple strategy वाला game है. That which you cannot beat, or more precisely, that which you do not have the resources to beat, it's better to join it. आपने लाख कोशिश किया ना, जो मैंने वो पिछले बार आपको बोला था ना ई-कॉमर्स के वक्त पे, कि चाइना का और आपका डिफरेंशिएशन और डिवीजन क्या है. आपका retail industry will evolve into 420 billion sometime in the next decade. They already have one which sells that in 1 year. You cannot match their influence. But you cannot hope for this by preying on your beads कि नहीं internal inconsistencies बढ़ जाएगा. कब तक ऐसा चलेगा कि कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम को लीड करेगा, कभी ना कभी तो ये गिर ही जाएगा और दलाई लामा हमें मदद करेगा. तो आप उल्लू. That is all that I would say. म्हणजे वाट बघून बसले ना की नाही नाही ह्या ज्या सगळ्या इनकन्सिस्टन्सीज आहेत ह्या एक दिवस आहे ना चायनाच्या दिवसाचा वॉल्केनो करणार सगळं उडून जाणार. तो तुम्ही वाट बघत बसा, आता काही होणार नाही. ते लय शांत तुमच्यापेक्षा शाणे इन द गेम दॅट दे आर प्लेइंग. मग आपण काय करणार? द न्यूक्लिअर पार्ट एअरक्राफ्ट कॅरियर्स आपल्याकडे काय हे बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे टीव्ही स्टुडिओ मध्ये बसून की चला आपण चीन विरुद्ध कारवाई करू असं म्हणणं बरोबर आहे. So बाकी कुछ नहीं है, बाकी there is nothing much. कारण मैंने if you are looking at political Islam, so let's be very clear about one big thing. Iran presently is undergoing a phenomenal transformation and a phenomenal transition in terms of the very public role of Islam as far as the state is concerned. Ayatollah Khamenei is already on the wrong side of everything. आणि तो कधी मरेल ह्याची आता शाश्वती उरलेली नाही. February मध्ये they will be voting for the new council which would be responsible that ती council 8 वर्षासाठी इलेक्ट केली जाते. आणि आता साधारणपणे अंदाज असा आहे की ही council कदाचित ज्या वेळेला पुढच्या निवडणुकीला जाईल तोपर्यंत it would already have selected the next person to lead the country. And there's a possibility that Ayatollah Khamenei would be dead by then. He already has cancer, he already has a number of problems. आणि ईरान का आयतुल्ला एस्टैब्लिशमेंट जो है पूरा पॉलिटिकल इस्लाम वाला एस्टैब्लिशमेंट जो है उनका बहुत सिवियर प्रॉब्लम ये हुआ है की द यंगर जनरेशन स्पेशली ती लोक जी 1989 नंतर जन्माला आली when the war was over have no memories and have nothing positive to talk about the revolution. So what's happening within Iran is the Iranian establishment is tolerating things. लोक सॅटेलाइट डिस्क लावतात, लोक अंडरग्राउंड गॅरेज मध्ये जाऊन हेवी पॉप आणि मेटलिक म्युझिक वाजवत बसतात, लोक ऑनलाइन पोस्ट मध्ये एक दुसऱ्याला असं सांगत बसतात की इस्लाम तो अच्छा है but the ayatollahs need to be killed. And the ayatollahs now tolerate everything. And the simple problem is social media cannot be controlled. So Iran is presently going a phenomenal transition in terms of the very public role of Islam as far as state is concerned. And Ayatollah Khamenei मेल्याच्या नंतर we don't know what the next person is going to look like. And Iran is the key. If you remember time and again what I have kept on saying, ईरान पूरा मिडिल ईस्ट का चाबी है. ईरान जैसे बदलेगा वैसे मिडिल ईस्ट बदलेगा. Mark my words, write them down. I have always pointed this out. Iran is almost the most influential key as far. अगर कुत्री पाळली है 53 में ईरान ने ऑयल नेशनलाइज किया. 60s में सारा अरब कंट्रीज commercialize them. 79 में the Arabs turned Islamists the minute the Islamic Revolution came into existence in 1970. So ईरान और मिडिल ईस्ट का एक बहुत अजब किस्म का हिस्ट्री है कि जिसमें पूरा मिडिल ईस्ट एक तरह से in terms of larger ideologies works in the way in which Iran works. Arab Spring 2011, no. The Green Revolt of 2009, when Iranians walked out on their streets demanding मेरा vote किधर गया? When Ahmadinejad was elected for his second term in office. And 2009 in the history of the Iranian Revolution is going to be the point of fracture. में त्या निवडणुकीमध्ये अहमदीनेजादच्या विरोधी असलेले कॅन्डिडेट्स आज 2015 when I'm talking to you are even today under house arrest. It's that big for the Iranians. Iran is undergoing a very systematic change. It's going to take time to sort of materialize in a very concrete form, but it's happening. It's afoot, and you'll watch it. You're going to have great fun on your hands. So this is I won't bring Islam into all of this, but geostrategy जो है ना, खास करके the China वाला, that is a very critical concern. And oil, as oil prices with the coming in of the Iranians keep on dipping down, the Saudis are going to find things very troublesome. And Saudi Arabia का instinct जैसा ऐसा सारा जो एक autocracy वाला country होता है ना, उसका एक ही instinct होता है. जब आपका crisis आता है ना, तो how do you project the crisis outside? So what the Saudis are going to do is use multiple pressure points across Asia, Africa and Europe to keep on escalating violence. हाँ बोल.
सर क्वेश्चन विचारायचे होते. पहिला क्वेश्चन असा होता की काही दिवसांपूर्वी इंडियाच्या सध्याचे आर्मी चीफ त्यांनी स्टेटमेंट दिलं होतं की इंडिया शुड रेडी फॉर लिमिटेड वॉर. तर हे लिमिटेड वॉर नेमकं कशा प्रकारचं असेल आणि ते जर सध्या सुरू झालं तर ते लिमिटेड राहील का? आणि दुसरा क्वेश्चन असा होता की सध्या इंडिया आणि पाकिस्तानमध्ये क्रॉस कंट्री रिलीजियस टुरिझम म्हणून त्यांनी चालू केले. तर ते रिलीजियस टुरिझम हा इंडिया आणि पाकच्या रिलेशनमध्ये किती उपयोग होऊ शकेल?
I don't know how do I answer that. Who said limited war? The Indian Army Chief. Hey, look, as far as the Indian Army Chief is concerned, किंवा for that matter of fact, the Indian Armed Forces are concerned. गेल्या 20 ते 25 वर्षापासून or institution set up with the government of India. ज्याच्यामध्ये the army will have what is called as operational autonomy. What it effectively means is the army would be in a position to draw up its battle plans without concerning itself with the MOD. Okay. उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या हो रहा है? आपका MOD completely bureaucracy dominated है, especially IAS officers dominated है. आपका आर्मी हेडक्वार्टर्स ऐसे लोगों से डोमिनेटेड है जिनका मानना ये है the IAS officers, the babus sitting in the MOD, रक्षा भवन, do not understand what it means to be running a modern army. Okay, the Indian Army, all the armed forces have a couple of very common problems. Recruitment का problem है, both at the level of soldiers as well as at the level of officers. Operational autonomy, operational consistency and operational unity का एक problem है. You are a big country, and in terms of तीनों armed forces के जो divisions है, वो divisions तो अपनी जगह पे इन सारों में एक harmony कैसे होना चाहिए इसका एक problem है. Okay, 3. We have been talking about a chief of staff who would be a 4-star officer who would go about negotiating between the government of India and the 3 armed forces since the last 20 years. वाजपेयी हाँ बोला, वाजपेयी ने जिस बंदे को अपॉइंट किया वो 3-स्टार ऑफिसर था. वो आर्मी के हायरार्की में ये फिट नहीं बैठता है. वो आदमी, ये तीनों जो बाकी के लोग हैं, they don't think that he is superior to them, so they don't give in to it. 4. There's a major problem on your hands in terms of what is called as the army's requirements in terms of war. After you deduct the army's expenses, what you are left with on the capital account for expending on arms, ammunition, weapon systems is not more than 40%. When the establishment cost almost 60% जा रहा है, 56 के आसपास होता है, rounded up to 60. हाँ? Check out for 2015. India is the world's largest in 2015. It overtook Saudi Arabia as the world's largest importer of weapon systems. Huh? So on one hand, Make in India is now being pitched as one grand project which would help start what is known as industrial production as far as the army is concerned. सो ये मल्टीपल प्रॉब्लम्स है. अब इन मल्टीपल प्रॉब्लम्स में इंडियन आर्मी का पॉइंट ये है कि the Indian army has to fight a war, it has inevitably got to be what is called as a limited war. What one means by limited war is the time in which this conflict pans out and the space in which it has panned out are both in some way or the other restricted, are both in some way or the other limited. You don't take this beyond. Okay? But once the war gets started, this is not for you to decide. जैसे ये आपकी कैपेसिटीज पे डिपेंड होगा, उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट करना, उसको लिमिट करना. जैसे से फॉर एग्जांपल द अमेरिकन्स डू इट कि द फायरिंग एंड द वॉर इज लिमिटेड ओनली टू दिस रीजन. दे कैन डू इट बिकॉज दे हैव सुपीरियर सॉर्ट ऑफ रिसोर्सेज बोथ ह्यूमन टेक्नोलॉजिकल कि जिससे दे कैन रिस्ट्रिक्ट द थिएटर ऑफ वॉर की ह्या कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एवढ्याच एरियामध्ये होणार. आता तसं होण्यासाठी you need to have those types of resources when you compare it with the country with which you are waging war. You don't have those types of resources with the Chinese. The Pakistanis have ring-fenced themselves with a lovely idea which says this, that in any conflict which threatens the very existence of Pakistan, Pakistan is going to use nuclear weapons. The Pakistanis are very clear about this. So in an India-Pakistan conflict, India China तो छोड़ दो, मैं तो सोच भी नहीं सकता except for comics, animation series and Akshay Kumar films that India can wage war against China and possibly win something in it. So animation series साठी चांगलं आहे आणि अक्षय कुमार साठी चांगलं आहे ना. त्याला जुना अनुभव आहे ना बेजिंग चायना टाउन, त्याच्यामुळे ते बरं आहे. पण रिअलिस्टिकली स्पीकिंग अदर दॅन दिस इंडिया कॅन नॉट इमॅजिन अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विथ द चायनीज. आणि कुठल्याही कसल्याही फॅन्सीज नाही, कसल्याही प्रकारच्या फॅन्टसीज नाही की नाही म्हणजे अक्रॉस द बॉर्डर इन तिबेट नाही कारण यामध्ये येतील, चला व्हिएतनामला जाऊ, असलं काही होणार नाही. असल्या कुठल्याही गोष्टी नाही. म्हणजे आपण साऊथ चायना सीला जाऊ. बघा बाबा, फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम वी मेन्शन साऊथ चायना सी एज अ थिएटर ऑफ कन्सर्न फॉर द इंडियन. यू कॅन मेन्शन मार्स, द चायनीज आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी वरीड बाय इट. नो, स्टॉप फूलिंग योरसेल्फ. You can mention whatever you want. The question is, in that theater of war, do you have the resources to exert yourself? तो वो कंडीशन में आपका खाली एक ऑप्शन जो है वो पाकिस्तान वॉर. पर पाकिस्तान वॉर की केस में the Pakistanis have always ring-fenced themselves with a nuclear doctrine which says if it threatens the existence of Pakistan, we will use nuclear weapons. We are not worried about this कि the party opposite to us is it going to use those weapons or not. आता त्या केस मध्ये करणं काय गरजेचं आहे, बिफोर द पाकिस्तानीज रीच आउट टू देयर न्यूक्लियर बटन, कैन यू डिसाइसिवली कंट्रोल देम. आप जो वॉर उनके खिलाफ वेज करोगे उसको आप लिमिटेड रख के कैन यू प्लान ऑफेंसिव की ज्याच्यामध्ये बिफोर दे कैन असेंबल देयर वेपन्स एंड फायर एट यू, कैन यू रीच इस्लामाबाद एंड कैप्चर इट. यू गेटिंग इट? ऑन पेपर सब ठीक है, एक्चुअल प्रैक्टिस में देयर आर लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स व्हिच टर्न आउट टू बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. So a limited war is an idea which says that given the fact that we have limited resources, given the fact that we have a certain sort of moderate resource, so what should be done is the theater of the conflict, both in terms of the time of the conflict as well as the space of the conflict, should be kept restricted. Limited war का idea एक ही होता है कि जिस चीज में वो limited रहता है उसमें the party that is limiting it has a certain sort of upmanship, has a certain sort of superiority in terms of trying to dictate it. So when I say that I am limiting this, what I am doing is I have resources at my command which will see to it that I will dictate the position on the ground. पण ह्याच्यात लय अननोन्स असतात. ह्याच्यात ऑपोजिट साइड कशी रिॲक्ट करेल हे तुम्हाला माहित नाही. तुमची लिमिट तुम्ही लिमिट करण्याचा प्रयत्न करणार पण तुम्हाला त्यासाठी फिनॉमिनल रिसोर्सेस कंटिन्युअसली सप्लाय एंडला ठेवायला लागणार. So if at the opposite end, the party that you are fighting this conflict, if they push in something unknown into all of this, you should have an immediate position to regroup and retarget. वो हुआ तो खेल खेला जा सकता है. वो अगर नहीं हुआ, आपने कहा कि नहीं फर्स्ट राउंड ऑफ फायरिंग में I can spend in 1 million bullets, पण सेकंड राउंड ऑफ फायरिंग मध्ये ना माझ्याकडे 10,000 उरतात. मग आहे ना तुम्ही घरीच जा. खास करके the opposite side is bringing in something like 20 million across. मग सगळ्याचा स्टॉक घ्यायला लागतो. आपल्याकडे काय आहे, किती आहे, आणि आपल्याला हे करत असताना when you are limiting the theater and the time, you've got to continuously have a very advanced level of intelligence about the enemy's capacities to do something or the other. ये enemy का पोजीशन क्या है, उसके रिसोर्सेज क्या है, वो कितना डिप्लॉय कर सकता है, उनकी कौन सी फोर्सेस कंट्री के किस एंड में स्प्रेड आउट है, how much time would they take to reach this theater of war, by the end of which I can push my things in. So it works on a number of planes. And as far as Indian intelligence is concerned, I better not open my mouth about it. तुम्ही आहे ना दाऊदला शोधा. म्हणजे तेच बरे, तुम्ही जाऊन त्याच्याच बायकोला फोन करून विचारा की साहेब झोपले का साहेब जेवतायत का काय करतात. तुम्ही आहे ना त्याच्यातच आनंद माना. पाकिस्तानी आर्मी जो ऑपरेशनल कैपेसिटी वो ना थोड़ा ज्यादा है आपकी, आपने एक दूसरा काम करो, ये आपके लिए अच्छा है. त्यानंतर पुढच्या पिक्चरचा आपल्याला स्क्रिप्ट येईल. यू गेटिंग इट? As far as the second one is concerned, personally I have a problem because religious tourism encouraging it.
That was a question in GS2 also. Sports and cultural exchanges. So this question religious and mग असं combine होतं.
नहीं, sports and culture I can understand. That is different. But the minute you say religious tourism, my one small problem. It works. It definitely works. It works in a phenomenal way. A, because Indians and Pakistanis in the subcontinent are one of the most religious people. In the sense कि अच्छा contemporary times when I am situated and talking to you, our idea of all manner of cultural transactions, somehow or the other, either are centered or embedded in something called as religion. इथे लक्षात मी what is it that I am trying to push? मैं आपल्याला तसं बघायला गेलं तर साधी गोष्ट करायची असते की काय म्हणजे आपल्याला वेळ काढायचा आहे आणि खेळायचं. अंताक्षरी खेळायची असते. अंताक्षरी अंताक्षरी खेळण्यामध्ये आपण सिनेमाची गाणी वापरतो आणि त्या सिनेमाच्या गाण्यांना आपण भजनांवरती शेप करतो. I don't know if you have played those types of games or seen people play those types of games. So आज का इंडिया पाकिस्तान का पॉपुलर कल्चर जो है वो बहुत स्ट्रांगली या तो सेंटर्ड है या तो एम्बेडेड है समथिंग कॉल्ड एज रिलीजन. म्हणजे सगळ्यांना पिकनिकला जायचं आहे, सगळ्यांना फिरायला जायचं आहे. त्याच्यामध्ये त्या जे काही 4-5 फॅमिलीज आहेत किंवा एक अख्खा अपार्टमेंट कॉम्प्लेक्स आहे, एक अख्खं जे काही हमारा जमात हमारा जात अशी काही जे काही असतील फॉर्मेशन्स, त्यांना सगळ्यांना कुठेतरी फिरायला जायचं. आता फिरण्याचे टर्म्स ठरलेले असतात की बाबा हवा पालट होते, रुची पालट होते, सगळं होतं. बट इट ओपन्स अप स्पेसेस फॉर सोशलायझिंग अमंग पीपल, मेन वुमेन, मेन अँड वुमेन. मग कुठे जाऊ आपण? चला तिरुपतीला जाऊ. तिरुपती काय जागा असती का? नाही जाऊ. पण कसं तिथं पोहोचण्यामध्ये साध्य नाहीये, जाण्यामध्ये साध्य. परमेश्वर तिथं नाहीये. परमेश्वर कशात आहे? त्या प्रवासामध्ये परमेश्वर सापडतो. So religion opens up those types of possibilities for people. So religion is big. म्हणजे आपल्या इथं जे जे काही केलं जातं ना, in both India as well as Pakistan, in terms of visiting different types of shrines across the country. तुमच्या इथं तुम्ही ते 4 धाम यात्रा, 8 गणपती, हा बालाजी, तो बालाजी, ते काय वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारची शक्तिपीठ, जैन असतात तर ते वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारची जैन तीर्थालय, the Buddhist track from Lumbini to Kushinagar. पाकिस्तान मध्ये they move in the different dargahs. अलग अलग दरगाहों की जियारत कर रहे हैं. सगळे साऊथ एशियामध्ये सगळे सारखेच उद्योग करत फिरतात. सारख्याच पद्धतीने शाळेत सारख्याच पद्धतीने वावरतात. So on one hand, if you look at contemporary cultural transactions, you would feel that there is a space for religion. Which there is, I'm not going to deny that. My only problem is if you are going to throttle all other possibilities of tourism and say that this is the only one which needs to be promoted between the two countries, I would have a problem for a simple reason, because what it does is it reduces the tourist to only a religious identity, which is not true. ना म्हणजे मग पर 47 मध्ये काय फरक झाला? 47 about this ना कि आप इंडियंस हो ना तो इसलिए आप हिंदू हो, आप पाकिस्तानी हो इसलिए आप मुसलमान, क्यों वाइस वर्सा? आप मुसलमान हो इसलिए आप पाकिस्तानी हो, आप हिंदू हो इसलिए आप इंडियंस हो. How does that work? I mean, yes, we are Hindus, we are Muslims, we are whatever we are Indians, Pakistan, but even beyond that, we are so much, na. There are so many other things to do. I can easily go to Pakistan to see the different types of Indus Valley sites. For that, I need not be a Hindu, na? But if you reduce me to that level, saying what I would demand is all manner of tourist opportunities should be opened up. Irrespective of whether वो religion के लिए जाना चाहता है, non-religious purpose के लिए जाना चाहता है, कुछ भी हो, खोल दो, सब कुछ खोल दो. Let everyone move all over the place. It makes no difference now. And to say that we would sort of privilege the religious tourism part of it, जिसके spaces बहुत है. In the Punjab, especially if you look at it, the different types of dargahs, deras, gurdwaras that we have on both sides of the border, open, even the Punjab all by itself can actually end up being the centerpiece of all religious tourism across South Asia. म्हणजे Pakistani Punjabis going to India, Indian Punjabis going to Pakistan, the Ahmadis would be very happy and they'll get to come to Gurdaspur. Then you will have the diaspora Punjabis traveling across. दिलवाले दुल्हनिया ले जाएंगे स्टाइल. तो सगळ्यांना आनंद आहे. आणि बाय देमसेल्फ जितना पंजाब में ट्रैवल करेगा ना, वो तो पूरा इंडिया पाकिस्तान एक दूसरे में ट्रैवल करके भी जितना नहीं बनेगा उतना प्रॉफिटेबल टूरिज्म बनेगा. The number of Sikh shrines which you have on the Punjab side of the Pakistan side of the border, the number of Muslim shrines which you have on the Indian side of the border, the number of Hindu temples which you have working on the Pakistan Punjab side of the border. There are a couple of Jain temples in Lahore which are even today lived in by the Jain monks. Endless city. But only small submission and problem is that at the end of the day it reduces us only to that old 1947 wala bracket of understanding that we are Hindus and Muslims. And hence we are Indians and Pakistanis. Which I say is the wrong way of looking at things. I would rather let everything be opened up. सब कुछ let's travel in and out. जैसे पहले करते थे ना सिल्क रूट के ज़माने में. You should learn something from the Chinese. पता है क्या? The Indian option to the Silk Route would be let's travel like we traveled. Huanchuang आला ना. Huanchuang Silk Route वरती आला ना. मग आज असा एखादा Huanchuang येऊ शकतो का इंडिया? असं कसं येईल? काय हरकत आहे यायला? यायला पाहिजे का नाही? Those roads will go through Pakistan and Afghanistan. We'll have to open up those roads. Anyway, that has to happen. It's the logic of history. It can't be stopped. Nationalism abruption था. Nationalism एक abrupt fragmentation का moment था. Done. It's over. Does not mean that you are going to have once traveling to India for purposes of learning Buddhism. That phase is also done. आज का वन बुद्धिज्म की स्टडी के लिए नहीं आने वाला है. आज का वन आया था ये ढूंढने के लिए अच्छा होटल बांधना है किधर बांध सकते हो तुमची डील किती आहे माझ्याकडे 12 कोटी आहे 6 कोटीत काम करून देतो चला. आज का वन कम्स फॉर दिस ट्रेड कॉमर्स इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज लीजर रिलॅक्सेशन.
ईस्ट एशियाची डील करताना बराचसा बुद्धिझम वापरलं की
तोच तर प्रॉब्लेम आहे. सगळ्यात मेजर प्रॉब्लेम काय आहे की एक इन द प्रेझेंट यू आर रिड्यूसिंग मी टू दॅट लेवल. बी you believe that the past is living exactly as it was in the past, which is not the case. That is exactly what I am trying to tell you. प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि आज की तारीख में आप एक रिलीजियस साइट पे जा रहे हो पर आज की तारीख में आप उस पर्पस के लिए नहीं जा रहे हो जिस पर्पस के लिए पहले जाते थे. 16व्या शतकामध्ये तिरुपतीला जाणं आणि 21व्या शतकामध्ये तिरुपतीला जाणं याच्यात खूप मोठा फरक आहे. पर्पसेस मध्ये आहे, ज्या पद्धतीने जातात त्याच्यामध्ये आहे, ज्या रिच्युअल साठी जातात त्याच्यामध्ये आहे, सगळ्यामध्ये आहे. You are going to the same place. You are worshipping the same deity. But in between, in these 500 years, everything has changed. 16व्या शतकामध्ये कुणी या गोष्टीचा विचार केला नसता की एक दिवस आपण तिरुपती हुंडीतले पैसे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीटर्स वरती मोजणार आहे. मग आपल्याला इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीटर्स वर मोजायला लागतात. आज जमा झाल्याच्या नंतर आपल्याला गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडियाच्या मॉनिटायझेशन स्कीम मध्ये टाकायला लागतात. हे असलं नव्हतं आमच्याकडे 16 टक्क्यात काही. So going to the same place, but the purpose, the objectives, the method, everything is undergone a change. And if you are oblivious of that, then you will create a problem for yourself. You will become a schizophrenic. तो आप उधर ही जा रहे हो जैसे सब लोग मक्का जाते हैं. पर आज का मक्का और for that matter of fact मक्का 500 years ago छोड़ दो, मक्का 20 years ago was also a different place. If you lose sight of that, which is what the Saudis want you to do, Mecca highly commercialized है. I think I did talk to you all about it at some point of time कि Mecca Towers जो है, जो सामने खड़ा है exactly in front of the Kaaba, is the costliest real estate in the world at $55,000 per square foot, and yet every level of Mecca Towers is occupied. And when you ask the Saudis about this कि ये एक crass commercialization का नमूना है, the Saudis answered by saying कि fun at the Kaaba, why should you look up? When you are at the Kaaba, you should always look at the Kaaba. When you are at the Kaaba, you should always look down. आप ऊपर क्यों देख रहे हो? तो हमने टॉवर्स को परमिशन दिया और टॉवर्स ऊपर है, ये हमारा प्रॉब्लम है, ये आपने पॉइंट आउट करने का जरूरत नहीं है. हम आपको बताएंगे आपका प्रॉब्लम ये है कि आप ऊपर देख रहे हो. यू नीड टू लुक डाउन. व्हाट डू यू लुक डाउन एट? मार्बल फ्लोरिंग? दैट इज नॉट हाउ द प्रॉफिट लिव्ड. You want to execute the Sharia as it was in the 7th century, but Mecca did not look like this in the 7th century. It did not have marble. Marble is not a Arabian stone. And that is how religion changes. And if you are oblivious to this, उसका मोस्ट प्रोनाउंस चेंज मटीरियलिटी है. पर अगर आप रत्ती भर भी उससे ध्यान हटाओ, आप मुसीबत में जाने लगो. कैन यू इमेजिन दिस कि व्हाई डू यू नीड टू परपेट्रेट वायलेंस इन द नेम ऑफ रिलीजन? प्रिसाइजली बिकॉज द मटीरियल चेंज ऑफ रिलीजन इज सो स्पेक्टॅक्युलर. आणि हे सगळ्या धर्मांच्या बाबतीत आहे. हे फक्त यांच्या सगळ्यांच्या बाबतीत आहे. सो द मटीरियल हॉलोइंग आउट, टर्निंग द स्टोन इनटू मार्बल, start becoming powerful. You have a human agency that is intervening and changing and overhauling things. Now you need something by which you can emphasize and believe in God. And that inevitably takes you to more violence, either towards your own self or towards somebody else. कारण आता तो spectacular violence जो है ना, that is going to be the premise on which your belief is going to get strengthened. The actual thing in front of you has already undergone a change. तो अब यकीन रखने के लिए आपको वो violence का जरूरत है. एक शिद्दत से violence का जरूरत है. Why does the violence happen along with these material changes, rapid material changes of the last 20 years? How does one explain the relationship between the two? And that is my problem. I did rather go to Pakistan. I did go to all the dargahs. I don't have a problem with them. But I did also go for so many other things. I did go to its museums, I did go to its libraries, I did go to its stunning, beautiful passes and mountain valleys. For that, I need not be reduced to only being a person who belongs to a religion. Modern man is not about being religious. जो believers है, उनकी केस में वो उनकी जिंदगी का हिस्सा हो सकता है, पर वो उनकी जिंदगी में भी इतना बड़ा हिस्सा नहीं है कि वो बाकी सारी चीजों को स्नफ आउट कर देता है. It's just one more aspect of life. Are you getting it? It will take time understanding. It has taken me, it will take you. Don't worry.
So, what do you think India has to give to the world?
मेरे को नहीं मालूम. No, I would simply say the same level of openness that made what we are. In terms of everything, the same sense of being of this world and yet not being a part of it, which classically एक classical feature है Indian civilization का. Indian civilization एक तरह से उसका जो defining feature है, they it's a part of this world and yet not a part of it. We are this worldly and at the same time we are other world. And this happened precisely because we were for ages a country which was phenomenally opened up. I would rather let things be in that manner. Except for the fact that while we were open to the world, we were also close to ourselves within. So I would rather like that to change. We were open to the world. Huanchuan यायचा. Huanchuan सगळ्या जगात नाही येत होते. Huanchuan आलेला आहे, सगळ्या प्रकारची लोक आलेली. पण while the whole world came, learned, moved in and out, we were also people who were close to each other. Huanchuan येतो म्हणजे if you look at the Huanchuan travels, they are so phenomenal in terms of the way in which they describe the country. But at the same time, they also tell you, now the untouchables live outside the village boundaries. They don't have any possessions. They are famished, ill-looking people. वो बहुत ज़्यादा बदलने का ज़रूरत है ना. तो एक तरफ इंडिया एक हमेशा ऐसा कंट्री था, which was एकदम the gateway of the world. The world passed through it. But at the same time, it was also a land which was phenomenally marked by what is known as profound inequalities. Open to the world, but close to itself. I would like the first to be established, and I don't worry about it, because I know that that is always going to happen. तुम्हारा geographical location ऐसा है, तुम लाख कोशिश करो चीजों को बंद करने को, नहीं होने वाला. तुम्ही किती पण प्रयत्न करा, तुम्ही किती पण एकमेकाला सांगत फिरा, ते आसाममध्ये ना लय चांगलं देशील म्हटलं हो बरं आहे, त्याने काय फरक नाही पडणार. And the second, well, it's anyway happened. वो सेकंड का ठीक है, आपने कुछ न किया, आपने कुछ न दिया. Those who you close things to have struggled against it, have worked their way up and know how to assert themselves, and they'll always do it. So don't give up. So मेरे को तो ना दोनों चीजों पे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. इन दोनों चीजों की बीच में जो भी आएगा, जो भी ये कोशिश करेगा कि let's close all the doors and keep India a shut place, that is not going to work. Let's keep people down where they are. हाँ, हमने कसर की. हाँ, अपन reservation रखें. Let's establish a committee of eminent people who will decide as to have we benefited out of reservation, and if we have not, let's abolish them. तो मोहन काहीतरी दुसरं कर. मग दोन्ही केसेस मध्ये मला त्याची काळजी नाही. I know this for sure. ये टेम्पररी है, आता जाता रहेगा. दोनों ओके रहेगा. Those that you closed yourself to are phenomenally going to open everything up. And the physical space that you think you can close, वो तो तुम्हारा सारा जिंदगी तुम नहीं कर सकते, तुम कितना भी कोशिश करो. But I would expect that to happen. That is all. India's gift to the world is that. A country which always remained open to the world and all the possibilities of that openness. But a country which was always closed to things within, and which on account of the possibilities opened up by colonialism is in the shape in which it is. कि जिसके ऊपर दरवाजा बंद किया ना, वो सारे दरवाजे खोले. येते का लक्षात?
सर,
हाँ.
सर तुम्ही म्हणालात की पीएमला पाकिस्तानमध्ये जाण्यापासून कोणी थांबवू शकत नाही. सर यूपीएच्या 10 वर्षाच्या काळामध्ये मनमोहन सिंग एकदा सुद्धा पाकिस्तानमध्ये गेले नाही. जर त्यांनी इच्छा व्यक्त केली होती की जन्मगावी त्यांच्या जायची, तरी
नाही. हे बघ, यू कॅनॉट से दिस दॅट की मला पाकिस्तानला जायचं कारण मला माझ्या जन्मगावी जायचं. That is one thing that we really need to be very clear on. More you can go in an individual capacity. You need not travel as a Prime Minister of India. That is one. B, to be very fair to Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh's fundamental problem was the way in which the BJP breathed down the neck of the Singh government. And I mean, this was not just about Singh. This was also something that they did with Vajpayee. कारण एक चीज जो आपको याद रखना है कि डॉक्टर सिंह का जो पाकिस्तान प्रॉब्लम हुआ, वो एक्चुअली डॉक्टर सिंह का तो है, पर उसकी शुरुआत वाजपेयी के साथ ही हुई है. कि वाजपेयी डिड सम ब्रिलियंट थिंग्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ वो लाहौर पास विजिट एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. क्या थिएटर था, ग्रैंड थिएटर एंड मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिएटर. ही वेंट टू लाहौर विद देवानंद. 1990s में when cable television was yet to become universal in Pakistan, the old Hindi songs was what most Pakistanis identified India with. And there was Devanand. It's one of the most beautiful songs. वाजपेयी को जो सेंस था कि हाउ डू यू पुट टुगेदर द विजिट, किसके साथ जाओगे, क्या मतलब पूरा थिएटर था, वो खत्म हो गया सब. बाद में 2004 तक हमने कोशिश किया, but it didn't work. So the Manmohan Singh status started with Vajpayee itself. कि after a point of time, other than theatre and style, there was no substance to put on the table. And especially with 9/11, so things became very very difficult. India के लिए things became very problematic with the December 2001 का attack on the Indian Parliament. कि ज्याच्यानंतर देखील the channels of communication stayed open, but there was not much that could be said after that. तो 2004 का मुशर्रफ का aborted visit, the game was done, it was over. And then 2008 acts exactly in the same way as far as Dr. Singh is concerned. कि नहीं ठीक है जाना है पर जाके करना क्या है? And Dr. Singh being what Dr. Singh is. I mean, it's not that he's going to die. I mean, there's no reason why you should feel some sort of romance and all of this. He would die a broken-hearted man who would never go back to the village in which he was born. He was merely born in that village. He left it when he was 10 years old. It's not that he grew up with growing up के memories of that place. So he's not exactly going to miss anything. पर अच्छा रहता अगर गाया रहता. पर उसका प्रॉब्लम बहुत सिंपल था. He being the sort of hard-minded realist that he was. टेबल पे क्या है? क्या करेंगे जाके? क्या करना है? For somebody of the economic caliber of Dr. Singh, his fundamental problem was if Pakistan has a blacklist of commodities and trade with India, तो फिजूल है ना, कुछ भी तो नहीं है. The Singh years happened when Pakistan was undergoing its transition, when the army was trying to figure out its assets and control them. The Singh years happened when the Americans were planning their exit from Afghanistan. So काफी कुछ उस माहौल में ऐसा था जो बहुत नेगेटिव था, और उस सिचुएशन में he was very clear, place something on the table, will work. काही नाही तर काय नुसतं फिरून काय येणार ना. ते काय मी इंडिव्हिज्युअली पण करेल ना. व्हाय शुड आई डू दैट एज अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया? सिख ऑक्सफोर्ड एजुकेटेड मैन है, उसने दुनिया देखा है.